Brother Smithwick, I am grateful that you walked through those doors and that you've overcome the challenges you have seen along the way in joining the church. I'm grateful for those people that were a part of you and your conversion. I would say that, like my wife, she found out you were speaking earlier today and she was so happy to do it. She says she loves hearing your perspective, and I do too as well. All right, well, speaking in church now is a little bit different with COVID because people are pretty spread out. So can somebody in the back give me like a thumbs up that you can hear me just fine? Brother Gaddis? Okay, all right, good. Okay, thank you. There's soft seats up here too for anybody who wants to come in the future. Brother Fife won't bite or anything. Now, over the years, I've heard people when they've started their talks, they often ask something from the congregation, including forgiveness for being a poor orator, or they ask for understanding due to a lack of preparation or to patience for perceived doctrinal inadequacy. Now, I'm not about to ask you for that, but I am going to ask something out of you, and that is, I'm going to ask that each of you extend me a little grace and a little understanding as I take us on a journey through how our lives are benefited by having a living prophet. Now, if there are feelings that you have that are challenged, if I bother you, if I offend you, it is not intended to be so. It is coming from a good place, a positive place. So just please stay with me. Now, I'm pretty sure at this point, at the very least, I have at least grabbed the attention of President Mattingly or members of the bishopric. They may be devising or texting each other, trying to figure out how we get an exit strategy. Maybe say, Brother Wyndham, he's not a very big guy. Take his legs out. I'll push the power button on the mic. We'll get it out of here. Now, are y'all still okay? I got a thumbs up, but I kind of felt like his hand was getting closer to the power button for the mic. Now, this has been a challenging topic to prepare for. You may not think that at first glance. How has a living prophet blessed my life or blesses my life? Now, many years ago, while I was at the gym, I met a gal. Now, if I was already walking a fine line here, I'm really walking a fine line when talking about a girl I dated before I was married. We'll just call this girl Sarah. And that's not her name, but to protect the innocent, I've changed the name. We discussed many things, including our faiths. We went on some dates. But our faiths were both very important to each of us. This, of course, inevitably led to an impasse. Eventually, Sarah's idea to resolve this was to go to other churches other than our own to see which one we liked the most. I had to explain this isn't an apples to apples comparison because it's not about the building. It's not even about the people. It's the doctrine that matters. By joining another church, I would lose out on many of the blessings that come from being a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. I explained, I already get everything that comes with your faith. A relationship with Jesus Christ, check. Understanding of the atonement, check. The Bible, check. I've got all that. I've got more to be able to come. It comes from a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. You can likely rattle off several things yourself. The Book of Mormon, plan of salvation, temple marriage, God, Christ, the Holy Ghost, relationship to each other and their true nature, the priesthood, living prophets. My life is rich due to the restored teachings of living prophets. That last benefit, president and prophet, have been the focus of my recent studies. Their responsibilities both include administrative and prophetic functions. A president needs to be a qualified individual. We need someone who, at the head of our church, can make well thought out decisions. They're able to meet with heads of states, understand the challenges of organizing the church and calling people to certain callings. They also need to understand how to seek and receive revelation. They need empathy. They need love. There are several callings that hold the title of president. We have President Renshaw, our Elders Quorum president. We have President of Deacons Quorum, our bishop. We have stake presidency. There are many titles. Our Young Women's, our Relief Society. There are many people in our faith who have the title of president. The doctrine that those presidents teaches does not change, but how they teach it may. Russell M. Nelson is the president and the prophet. As I studied, I felt there was a difference between the duties of administering to the church and being the prophet. Being a successful president of any worldwide organization requires, among other things, being a good leader, experience running a large organization, understanding and obedience to the principles, value, and purpose of the organization. I think there are tens of thousands, perhaps millions of people who are leaders of a worldwide organization. They usually have years of experience prior to maybe formal education and even training before they become a worldwide leader. Take this back to Joseph. He had to learn how to be the president of the church. It's often referenced he had a third-grade education, that as an adult at times he could not write a formal letter. It took years, trials, continued study, learning from mistakes, counsel from divine beings, and more to settle into the role he became later in his life as the president. However, no one had to teach him how to be a prophet. At 14 years old, he went as a farm boy, he went to the sacred grove, and through that miraculous vision, he started to profess and became the prophet Joseph. He became the mouthpiece for God on the earth. As time went on, he grew into the role as the president of the church. Remember, he didn't have the opportunity, as many have since, to be an apostle, a general authority, a primary teacher, a bishop. He had none of that to prepare him before he had to take on the mantle of the president. He had to learn those skills on the job. In pondering how a living prophet, President Nelson, has blessed my life, what first came to mind were not his teachings, but rather how he has presided over the church. Like if you ask yourself, like right now, what are some of the things that you think about that a living prophet, President Nelson, has blessed your life? What are those things? One of the first things that may come to mind are, come follow me. That's a recent thing. That's not new doctrine. It's a new way of studying it. You say maybe 2-hour church. It's taking the sacrament, fellowshipping, instruction in a different package. No more Boy Scouts. That's not his teachings. That's a youth program we no longer use. There's presiding and prophet. Revealing doctrine, sunsetting doctrine, interpreting doctrine, prophesying of events to come seems squarely on the side of being a prophet. When it comes to the beautiful doctrine of Jesus Christ, essentially all that I am grateful for either happened when Christ was on the earth or before, or was restored when the prophet Joseph Smith was the prophet. Joseph, though, is no longer a living prophet. He's no more a living prophet at this point than Moses, Abinadi, or Abraham. I couldn't think of or find in my research any doctrinal changes or updates during my life. Living Christ, family proclamation, those are not new or revised or clarifying, but they are stating that what we believe and what we stood for is still what we believe and what we stand for. It begged the question through this study of what is the ongoing need for a living prophet. It was abundantly clear to me how a president of the church is needed. I can see how a prophet of the past and the scriptures are needed. I started to ponder if it's only perhaps once or maybe not at all during my life that there's a big doctrinal change or update, could we get by with a president and not a prophet? I started to ponder the value in having a prophet in my day-to-day, my week-to-week, my month-to-month. I figured that for me, on a personal level, if a living prophet has not had a recent impact on my life, then what value is it to me? If I'm not affected, then the prophet could be there or not be there, and it would make little impact on me, and I would not be in any or much of a different place. One thing I think that we can all agree on from President Nelson and the example that he has set is that you should not follow the traditions of our fathers just because they are the traditions of our fathers. So I challenged myself to not just accept what I've always believed and what I've always thought of if we need to have a living prophet. I looked at the last 4 weeks of my life. I went through my journal, I went through my calendars, and said during the last 4 weeks, how has a living prophet impacted me? Now, there have been 6 prophets since I've been alive, but only 3 of them have been alive since I have crossed the threshold of humility and reduced the amount of knuckleheadedness that I am. So there's like a ratio to that. You got to be able to be humble enough to learn. So once that happened, there were 3 presidents. So it's President Hinckley, Thomas S. Monson, and Russell M. Nelson. So how did these 3 individuals, these prophets, impacted my life? How have I benefited from their teachings since that point on? How has their counsel, advice, experiences, wisdom, and weaknesses helped me be a better parent, a better spouse, a better child of God? So I looked back. I went to my calendar. I picked out a few things. November 2nd, Relief Society presidency meeting. Okay, so now earlier, if I lost any brownie points with my wife by talking about the previous person, Sarah, this is where I start to earn these brownie points back. I find it a pleasure to hold down the fort while she is in a presidency meeting. See, I'm addicted to leadership and to great leadership. And the Relief Society presidency that we have in our ward, Yulia Brooks, Ashley Rufty, Caitlin Thomas, magnifique. They're amazing. I know whatever time I have to sacrifice is going to be worth it because when these 3 ladies get together, they are going to produce AAA quality stuff. It's good stuff. So how did a living prophet impact me that night and my feelings? President Hinckley taught, sisters, you do not hold second place in our faith and our Father's plan for eternal happiness of his children. When the process of creation occurred, the culminating act of divinity, the crowning act was the creation of woman. President Nelson also stated, no one can do what a righteous woman can do. There is no anything you can do, I can do better when it comes to a righteous woman. When I was younger, I did not necessarily agree with this, but I have seen this truth play out many times over. On November 6th, I had dinner with friends. For the past year, I've made it a goal to break bread or do an activity with others or someone who I am not like, that I don't agree with on certain issues, in the hopes of being more unified with others. Now, so I'm going to naturally gravitate to people like me. That's why we tend to consciously or subconsciously segregate ourselves into silos. I found that by doing so over this last year, at the very least, my life has been fuller. I hope theirs has been as well. Now, sometimes the areas we don't agree with still come up. But now we have full bellies. We have an understanding of how we are more alike. And we now have shared positive experiences. How was this day impacted by the teachings of living prophets? President Hinckley taught in the Teachings of Presidents of the Church that was released back in 2017 for study, may the Lord bless us to work unitedly to remove from our hearts and drive from our society all elements of hatred, bigotry, racism, and other divisive words and actions, the snide remark, the racial slur, hateful epithets, malicious gossip, and mean and vicious rumor mongering should have no place among us. In July of 2019, while speaking at the 110th National NAACP Convention, President Nelson taught, we are all connected, and we have a God-given responsibility to make life better for those around us. We don't have to be alike or look alike to have love for each other. We don't have to even agree with each other to love each other. If we have any hope of reclaiming the goodwill and humanity and sense of humanity for which we yearn, it must begin with each of us, one person at a time. God did not send us to this life to be comfortable. He sent us to this life to learn and to grow, to become like He is. I encourage each of you to think of someone, not like yourself, someone you may not agree with, and learn to love them. You likely have somebody in mind right now. It may be somebody giving a talk right now in church. If I happen to get a lot of invites for dinner, I will not be offended after this. I eat mostly vegetables, and I have no allergies at all. The week of November 14th, I traveled for work. It was a really great trip. It was the first work trip I've been on since the outbreak. From that trip, I saw a few things that stood out to me where a living prophet has blessed my life, but I'm going to choose just one night. One night after our work, but I've never done karaoke California style. Now, when we got there were lots of questions. Why don't you drink? Wait, how many kids do you have again? How do you have a 23-year-old and you look like you're 30? That was my favorite question, by the way. That was the best one. This was a dive bar. There was next level variety of people. Village people, covered. Kenny Rogers, covered. Joe Dirt, covered. You imagine it? Somebody from that walk of life was there. From that group of people, they were there. At times, it felt like an out-of-body experience. It was very surreal. And I sat there pondering, what would church be like if people felt as comfortable attending it as they did this dive bar? How did the teachings of a living prophet impact me that night? In 2016, President Monson tweeted, "Rather than being judgmental and critical of each other, may we have the pure love of Christ for our fellow travelers in this journey through life." In 2010, he said, "For some reason, despite our own imperfections, we have a tendency to point out those of others. We make judgments concerning their actions or inactions." I personally have an insatiable appetite for others to, like President Hinckley, bring with all the good that you have, and then let us see if we can add to it. I wish all would feel comfortable with their leather pants, their word of wisdom issues, their rainbow socks, their studs, their sailor hats, to join me each Sunday here in our building. Come as you are. I won't judge you. I want you with us. Like Brother Smithwick, I need you. My life is more complete because of you. The question I pondered at the beginning of this challenge was, is a clear and unequivocal no. We don't have time to discuss how their teachings have impacted me. My life is richer, though, because of them. There's also this point still of, if you don't ponder the prophet's teachings and reflect on how they can improve your discipleship of Jesus Christ to our Father in heaven, then the prophet could be there or not be there. It wouldn't matter much to you. You got to take what they teach and try to apply it to your lives. So that's, brothers and sisters, I challenge each of you to do the same. I'm asking you to look back on the month of November I want you to jot down the major things and the minor things, maybe even the boring ho-hum, and look at how the teachings of a living prophet during your life has impacted you. Take time to ponder how their counsel, their advice, the experiences, wisdom, and weaknesses of a living prophet could benefit the major and minor parts of your life. My encouragement would be not to let this precious gift that we have during our dispensation to go underutilized. I feel like I am living proof that the color of life's experiences is more rich and full, and the challenges that you will face inevitably will be easier if you embrace their teachings. And I testify that and do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.